On December 25th, 2016, Christmas time, I bought Life is Strange. Me, a 16-year-old with no way of making currency, spent his last $50 on a season's pass for what would later be described as a disappointment in the making. But I didn't know that yet. My mind hadn't yet been subject to such games like Life is Strange. I had never played anything like this, a game where you explore and make your own choices in ways that would seemingly change the way the story was told as a whole. My cynicism for games wasn't yet born. It only festered after replaying it. Life is Strange is a game about Max Caulfield, a nerdy young adult who finds herself with newfound abilities to rewind times at her own will. Don't Nod's second ever published video game, and the very first to be critically acclaimed and loved by the masses. And I loved it. My 16-year-old self couldn't get enough of it. I practically stalked Life is Strange's official Twitter for months, hoping for them to finally publish the next chapter in the game. I lingered on its subreddit, frequently checked the game's DLC section on my PlayStation, anything to get my fix on this game. Once I finally finished the game, its last episode, Polarized, I cried. I cried because I truly enjoyed my experience with this game, and to see it go, to watch as the ending credits came to an end, I knew that it was over. I've always had issues replaying games I've bought. I don't know why, but this time I didn't. This time I decided to be more thorough. I went everywhere I could, I made sure to take almost every optional picture, and talk to all of the side characters. I followed their subplots, their side stories. I think this was when I started noticing the flaws in the game. Today marks my 6th time playing this game, and I finally come to the conclusions as to why I so vehemently despise Life is Strange. Every character reaches levels of uncanny valley to me. It's extremely hard to believe anything anyone says in this game. Every character is an exaggeration of what they represent, and nothing shows that more than with the side characters. The side characters are put into this game to try and add a realistic flair to the in-game universe. Everyone seemingly have their own issues and goals in mind, almost all of which have to do with Max, or Max fitting herself in. And that's a problem. Max, the main character, should not be the main reason why almost every character's plot progresses. And yet this is what happens, because Don't Nod feels the need to fit Max into it. An example of good plot progression is having a character's plot progressed with or without the player's action, or with the help of the player starting the plot. It creates a level of realism we players find refreshing because it mirrors our reality. And yet, I believe that even if this were to happen, and it does in Life is Strange, Don't Nod would butcher it. Not because they're bad at storytelling, but because they're horrible at writing characters. And not to my main plot. The reason Life is Strange was a failure of a game, in my opinion, is because of how the characters are written. This is why I brought up the side characters, because they're the worst offense to my thought process. Don't Nod, in trying to add more to the game, created an issue with themselves. They don't know how to write young adults, and it's obvious when it comes to characters with the least thought put into them. As a side character, they aren't made to be the center of attention, so most often than not, they get the short end of the stick with the writing process. This is usually how it goes with most games, especially ones involving multiple writers. Don't Nod tries and, in my opinion, fails in writing a thoughtful group of characters with expansive stories to give them, because I believe they don't understand the current generation of young adults. And because of this, they have to revert to creating cookie-cutter characters in order to fill the gap. This may be amplified with the fact that this game is set in the United States and the creators being located in France, therefore creating greater lack of understanding American young adults as compared to France's, but that's my speculation and could be very much incorrect. Brooke Scott is an example of their butchered attempts at writing a young adult. Brooke Scott is characterized as a pompous young female who centers herself around intelligent individuals and with a knack for extreme jealousy. Her storyline revolves around her and Warren's relationship and how Max unintentionally creates a wedge between the two from blossoming while also grabbing Warren's attention in the process. Throughout the game, Brooke's jealousy and rudeness towards Max gets worse, ultimately culminating into a confrontation by Max about her views on her and Warren's relationship. The problem with this character isn't that Brooke is jealous, it's that Brooke is only jealous. In creating this side plot involving Brooke's love triangle with Max and Warren, Don't Nod forgot to add any real personality to what would be a unique character. Because of this, Brooke comes off as shallow and rude, when it was obvious that she was meant to be a sort of female counterpart to Warren, albeit much less science and more about technology. Her subplot, as with many others in the game, comes with the second biggest flaw of the game. The subplot's endings come abruptly and with force, oftentimes leaving the player with a sour taste in their mouths, and a view for wanting more. This time I'm going to use Daniel da Costa as an example for how empty an ending can be in this game. During the second to last chapter, you have the choice to either tell Daniel to go to the Vortex party happening later that night to try and enjoy himself, or to not go, in fear of him getting bullied. A quick note, this game treats Daniel as the character most recognized by who bullies him. He's the stereotypical victim character, which is why you would think this choice would make an important one. Throughout the chapter, it's implicit and even shown that Daniel and the more popular members of Blackwell Academy do not get along, him being subject to most of their horrible bullying, similar to Kate Marsh. This choice impacts him so greatly that if you choose to tell him not to go, you never see him again. This one choice and this one small conversation you have with him could be the end of his story, and the player would be none the wiser. The thing is, this choice isn't important, at least not to Max. It doesn't impact the player, nor does it change anything worth noting. This is a huge mistake in writing characters for this game, not just Daniel. If a character is so unimportant in the eyes of the creator that you can easily write them out of the story with one choice, then why create said character? This doesn't just end with Daniel. There are more characters who get broken endings due to this flaw. Let's talk about Evan Harris, who I think it's the shortest stick in the entire game. Not only does he have very little personality, if any, he also doesn't have a plot. He has no one to bounce off of, and we see him a total of 5 times throughout the game. 5 times. The least of any supporting character, which is an absolute shame, considering the hint of an eccentric personality and his apparent obsession for his art form, photography. I think something good would have been made out of that, but I digress. His character also brings to light how Dontnod butchers a character's potential. When replaying Life is Strange, I noticed how some of the main cast were used sparingly, most notably the principal, Ray Wells. Of all the main characters, he is used the least. Not because I believe they didn't want to use him, but because I believe they didn't know how to truly integrate him into the story. From the get-go, I believed he would be a main opposing force to whatever Max may be trying to uncover, be it Rachel Amber's disappearance, or the Prescott family's control over seemingly the whole of Arcadia Bay. What I was presented with, though, was Alak's character merely used as a ploy by the writers as a reason why the main 2 characters, Max and Chloe, didn't bring the authority into their findings. He's not to be trusted, and it's shown that's right in the 4th chapter when Chloe and Max break into his main office. Every offense Nathan Prescott has done was seemingly wiped off of his records by Ray, with evidence showing the Prescotts threatening to drop Blackwell Academy from being funded if he doesn't. This is honestly a unique plot thread, one of which is the better of the few subplots. But it doesn't get brought up to Wells, nor does it affect the characters in any real way, aside from giving us an explanation as to why Nathan is so untouchable. Ray's character shows Dontnod's ability to write well-meaning antagonists quite well. The one thing I have to give Life is Strange credit for is creating an antagonistic force like Ray Wells to feel somewhat realistic. Ray does what he does for just reasons. He knows what he's doing is wrong, but has no real power to fight against it, and must comply with the Prescotts every beck and call, else they'll pull Blackwell Academy's life support. It's just a real shame his side of the story wasn't used all that much, outside of a few documents shown throughout his main office and in Nathan's room. I feel Dontnod messed up greatly using him only as an explanation as to why the main characters can't trust authority, and not as an unwitting antagonist he was obviously meant to be from the get-go. Yet another example of Dontnod's bad story writings is the obvious character shipping going on throughout the later half of the game. It's not because I personally hate the shipping between Max and Chloe, it's because of the implications that the shipping leaves. Throughout the entire game, Chloe's driving force has been finding Rachel Amber, the missing girl from Arcadia Bay. It's heavily implied that Chloe and Rachel had a relationship at some point prior to the events of Life is Strange. Her feelings towards Rachel are obvious. Chloe loves her. She says it herself after finding Rachel's remains at the garbage dump. For Chloe to have fallen in love with Max in the span of 2 weeks, which is when the game takes place, is a spit in the face to Dontnod's own storytelling. We're led to believe that Chloe is damaged enough to risk her life to find Rachel. We're led to believe she cares about Rachel so much that she'd cover the whole of Arcadia Bay with missing persons posters on a daily basis, to the point where her only goal in life is to find Rachel. But we're also led to believe that Chloe loves Max? Either Chloe's relationship with Rachel didn't mean what we think it meant, or she's using Max as an emotional sponge bucket to empty all of her feelings into. That's not entirely why I wanted to bring the character shipping up though. I wanted to talk about the second choice at the end of the game. The one where Chloe and Max fulfill Chloe and Rachel's plans by leaving Arcadia Bay. It never truly shows the damages that you, the player, create in sparing Chloe. Max and Chloe silently drive away in Chloe's old pickup truck as the remains of what Arcadia was lay strewn about on the ground. The game never shows us what became of the diner, where Chloe's mother, Frank Bowers, and Warren would be during the storm. It never shows Blackwell Academy, or the hospital Kate is located at, only Chloe and Max running away from their one big issue. They unintentionally caused the storm that wrecked Arcadia Bay. The level of bad writing and how blatant this ending was made hastily, in a last-ditch effort to create a happy ending for Chloe, shows Dontnod's level of writing as a whole for this series. It should make you think. If this is how Life is Strange's writing standards were held, what kind of standards will the second season have? But I wanted to say one more thing before the video ends. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Dontnod, for creating Life is Strange. Without this game, I genuinely believed I wouldn't have gotten into analyzing video games the way I do now. I'm more cynical with games, but it comes with a great deal of happiness. Without my cynicisms created with this game, I don't think I would have enjoyed games like Oxenfree or Night in the Woods for their hard work in creating a lovable and amazing game experience. Thank you, Life is Strange. Thanks for being a disappointment the second time around. It means a lot. Hey everyone, this fucking video took forever to make, sorry, but by God did it fucking enjoy putting all of my thoughts and opinions about this game in one video. I just wanted to clear up some things that people may have thought about during the video. Yes, I know Before the Storm covers more about Chloe's and Rachel's relationship, and I indeed am planning on playing that. But at the time of this recording, I have yet to play it, and besides a few clips of the beginning of the game, I have no idea what it's about. Also, your opinions of this game are your own, and I can see why you would enjoy this game. It's got personality, it represents lesbians without pushing it in your face, and it's got a pretty decent nightmare sequence that I enjoyed. I still enjoy it whenever I replay it, even though it's a hassle to get through at times. Thank you for watching.